Jay, welcome to Podcastina.
Hi, Galina. Thanks for having me.
Of course. Thank you for coming.
Of course. I love. This is the second time this week I've made a trip to Marina del Rey.
Really?
Yes. I live. We talked about this right beforehand. I live in Highland Park, and I was literally down the street from here on Monday because I had to meet a friend for lunch at Killer Shrimp.
I love Killer Shrimp.
I'd never been.
It's fun.
I like it. We were there. It was a holiday. We were there. It's so big. It's so chill. I also, we sat outside. It was a beautiful day. And I dropped a fork. It fell through because there's like the glass. Mm-hmm. There's a break in the glass, and it fell through and landed on the actual, like a full story below. And I felt really bad.
Do you get embarrassed when things like that happen?
Yeah. Because usually I am the person who caused a catastrophe. I'm very like clumsy. I don't really have great spatial awareness. So I feel like I'm dropping things a lot, tripping over things, bonking into things. Some of it I can get over, but sometimes if it's something that's really like big and silly, like dropping a fork down an entire restaurant and I don't know if anyone will ever find the fork, then, I will feel very weird about it. But it is what it is.
It's tough. I did something similar. Now, I can't relate because I generally am not particularly clumsy.
Okay.
And so
bragging.
I am bragging. But what happens, because it's not normal for me, is then when I do lose something or something happens, I go into such just a mental tailspin because my identity is like, well, I don't lose things and I'm not clumsy.
See, this is I don't have to worry about freaking out too much because I know I'm clumsy. I know I'm going to be dropping stuff. I know I'm going to be the person who's like most likely to spill something or drop something. That's why I was like, I got to be so careful about where I'm putting my drink down before we do the show because I don't want to be like accidentally kicking it over.
Right.
I know I will. Not today.
It's good you're gentle with yourself about it because that's the downfall is like right now I have misplaced my AirPods for the second time in the last year.
Oh, no.
And I'm like really going through it about it.
How long have they been gone for?
They've been gone since last Monday, so a little over 2 weeks.
And they're dead, so you can't put them on Find My Stuff.
No, and I swear that thing has never helped me because the other time it happened, they happened to be in my car and I don't have enough service in the garage for the Find Me thing to help with that. And this time, what's really frustrating is I had an item on my to-do list for a while and it was clean my AirPods. So I specifically had taken them out. The last time I saw them, I was cleaning them.
Okay.
And I haven't seen them since.
Oh, that's tough.
And I feel like they're in this apartment somewhere.
They gotta be. How much of the apartment have you turned over looking for the AirPods?
Most of it.
Well, they might not be here. They might just be gone. You might need to get some new AirPods.
I know. I'm trying to hold out because last time I lost them, I found them 2 months later.
Oh, that's tough.
Yeah.
How long is the return window on AirPods?
I mean, it just pains me because it's like $140. That's just like a lot to spend on a dumb mistake.
Yeah, that's true. You know what? I'm gonna put it out there because I always lose stuff, but I think because I'm gentle with myself about stuff, I'm like, you know what? It'll come around. I'll find it. And I always do.
Were you
so
a clumsy
I'm gonna put
kid?
that energy out for you.
Oh,
that you'll find
you.
your AirPods.
Thank you. I hope so.
I was a clumsy kid. I was very clumsy. I've never been a really coordinated person. I've tried. This is why I was so bad at sports when I was a kid. Is because I've like no hand-eye coordination, tripping over stuff. I feel like I've got a really bad physical awareness, or had for a long time. Now I think I have a better handle on it, even if I know that I'm clumsy, but at least I can go like harness it in a reasonable way.
Yeah.
Like I've gotten really good at if I do drop something, I'm really good at like bobbling it around in the air and catching it.
Oh, that's actually really impressive. That's more impressive than just not dropping something.
Yeah. Or I can drop something and maybe like I'll catch it before it actually hits the ground.
Even better.
That's like that's a skill that I've developed over time.
That's the sleekest feeling in the world when something is falling and you just like Spider-Man it and save it.
Yeah.
It's almost worth it.
It definitely, I feel very cool when I'm doing that. Mm-hmm. But it's, it's one of those skills I don't want to have to bust it out super often.
Fair enough.
Because if I'm dropping a lot of stuff, then that is not looking my best, and that means I'm gonna be drawing a lot of extra attention that I need to be drawn to myself by knocking over drinks and dropping silverware and electronics and stuff.
Yeah. What's like the worst thing that you accidentally broke or that you were clumsy with and you're like, oh, this is bad?
My wife has gotten really on to me about this. I accidentally broke one of her mugs. She went on right when we first started dating, she went on a girls' trip to Greece, and she got this really cool mug in Santorini. And at some point in our living where we live now, I dropped the mug and broke it and tried to catch it. I tried very hard. Didn't make it happen.
Oh, man.
Couldn't do it. And she did keep, there's one piece that's like intact that we like kept as an art piece, I guess.
Now
But
you owe her a trip to Greece.
I know. I know. I'm sorry, honey. We'll go. We'll make it happen.
It's so painful when it's a sentimental item because I also collect mugs from places. I try to buy, I guess, like not trinkets or whatever, but when I'm shopping and I want some kind of souvenir, I try to buy something that has some utility to it.
Sure.
So mugs have been like a go-to.
That's a good go-to.
I used to have this beautiful mug that was from like, oh my gosh, what's the Disney movie called? Alice in Wonderland?
Alice in Wonderland, yeah.
Yeah, so I had this mug that was built as 3 different mugs, like 3 little cute teacups.
Okay.
And so it had a lot of shape to it. It was pretty unique.
That's cool. Like from the Mad Tea Party.
Yeah, from that. It was awesome. And we had a mouse break into our apartment when I lived in West Hollywood, and I had the mug on the windowsill with a plant in it, and the mouse knocked it over and smashed it.
See, at least that's not your fault, though.
Right.
The mouse is the culprit here.
Yeah.
So you don't have to worry about taking that on yourself. In the addition of losing the nice sentimental thing, it's also just like, all right, well, I have no control over this.
That's true. And what's crazy is, I mean, the mouse was on a tear in the apartment. It was eating through, we had like bananas on the counter. It went through those.
Oh, no.
It had the best time. And then when we told the landlord, he sided with the mouse. He was like, it's probably scared. What do you want me to do?
Get rid of the mouse.
Yeah.
Piece of shit, landlord. Come on now.
Have you ever had a terrible landlord?
I don't, I feel like I've more likely been a bad tenant than had a terrible landlord.
Have you? I can't see
like
that.
I try not to be, but when I first was living in LA, I was definitely like, it's from a lack of understanding of like how some of this stuff works. Like I definitely broke a lease because I didn't understand how breaking a lease worked.
Yeah.
And my landlord, I was living so when I first moved to LA, I lived in a group of, there was like 7 of us.
That's so many people.
It's a lot of people. We lived in a house. We first moved to LA. Almost all of us moved into this place at the same time. We moved into a condemned house on right off the 101 at Melrose. And then when we got kicked out of the condemned house, because basically there was a guy who was renting the house to us super cheap because he was trying to flip it, but he couldn't afford to flip it.
Oh, wow.
So once he finally had the money to flip it, he was like, okay, you guys got to leave. And so he found a different house that was run and managed by a lady who was like, had her shit together as a landlord. But I moved out of that house very abruptly to move in with the girl I was dating at the time. And one of my friends who was living in that house was also moving out, and we both were just like, oh, we're both leaving. And she was like, this is not how like getting out of a lease works. But we were like, we don't know. This is our first time ever renting a place. Do you expect us to read a bunch of paperwork? We're 23.
Nobody reads.
Nobody reads. But I feel like, I mean, generally all my landlords are good. Like I have landlords right now who are chill. They're not. I've had better landlords. They're totally fine. They are just like, this is their only residential property, so they're super hands-off, which is like great in one sense because we've been able to do a lot of stuff inside that I feel like your average landlord would not let you do.
Oh, I'm so curious now.
Like when we first moved in, we took down popcorn ceilings.
Ugh, yeah.
We had those because this is a house. We live in a house now. It's a duplex. It's been on the block. It's like 120 years old or something like that. It was built in the 1890s.
But they actually used to build houses better back then. I would make that argument.
They did. But it's had, over the course of its lifespan as a house, it's been through many lives. Mm-hmm. And at some point, one of those lives was, we're going to put popcorn ceilings up. And we moved in. We were like, this is ugly. We asked our landlords, hey, can we repaint? And they were like, yeah, totally. And we just took down the popcorn ceilings.
You did them a favor.
Exactly. At some point, we had something that we needed to have fixed, and our landlord's usual first move, her dad is a handyman, and she just sends him first. And if it's something that's like beyond his ability to fix, they'll hire a professional. And we had him come. We had some problem going on with like our sink was clogged in the kitchen, and he came and he looked up and he saw that the popcorn ceilings were gone, and he was just like, oh, nice. And then he went and took care of his thing because it looks so much better.
Oh, I'm sure it looks better. Nobody wants that. You just added value to their place.
Yeah. I don't know why anybody even continues to have popcorn ceilings around. It's 2025. Get rid of it. What are you doing? Why do you even sell it? Why is it at the hardware store still? Nobody wants it.
Nobody wants it. I thought it was a painting style or technique or whatever. I didn't know it was actual material.
It comes out of it's like a spray paint.
Oh.
But it's the texture. I think it's, something is in there that makes it popcorny. But I've seen it on the shelf at hardware stores. It's like texturized ceiling paint.
For a throwback Thursday, I guess.
Yeah, if you're going to have an 80s style bar, that's the only place where I think it's allowed.
Yeah, a thematic type of situation. Yeah, a thematic,
like whatever Good Times at Davy Wayne's is, but for like a really sort of 80s trap house feeling kind of a vibe. That's when you can put up the the popcorn ceilings.
When you lived in what sounds like a frat house, if I'm being honest, was that with all comedians?
No.
Oh.
No comedians. I was the only one. I worked when I was in college. I had interned at the Cannes Film Festival, and so it was a bunch of film students, or former film students. We'd all graduated, so a different kind of weirdo, artistic weirdo, not as degenerate as a comedian flophouse.
Yeah, because I feel like I think we know people, and you used to work at the store. Like a lot of store employees all used to live together in a big house, right?
Yeah, they used to. They almost brought it back because there's that house, Crest Hill is what they used to call it. It was right up the street from the store. There actually were tunnels. Because you know about the tunnels in the Comedy Store, right?
No.
Oh, man.
Enlighten me.
Yeah. So, because the store used to be way back in the day, it was Ciro's.
That I know, yeah.
And it was run by the mob. And they had tunnels for Prohibition to run liquor and stuff to various establishments. So the tunnels underneath the Comedy Store go across the street to the former House of Blues, now whatever that horrible hotel is, the Pendry. And the house that the comics used to live in also had tunnels that ran up to that from the Comedy Store.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah. So that was, I think, apparently Mitzi still was taking those tunnels. Sometimes she would just like appear in the club. But yeah, when I was first starting to work at the store, they actually, because the Shore family owned the house, and they talked about having comics who worked the door there live in the house again, or at the very least it would be like a mix of comics who worked the door and people who were like new or paid regulars. And I was on board with it. I was like, this sounds great. And then that plan never materialized. And the only time I ever lived with comics, I lived with Frank Castillo for a year, and then I lived with Jake Marin for a little bit. But I never did the whole like big comic flop house thing. I know that there are a couple of them in LA. Like the Valley, I know, had one for a while that a bunch of store people lived at.
I think that's the one I'm thinking of.
Yeah, that's the one that, like, I know Asan used to live there. I think Brian Simpson might have been there for a minute. Yeah, I think there were like 7 or 8 comics who lived in that house. It seems like it's kind of a rite of passage to live in a place like that, though.
Yeah, I think everybody has to do it once. Like I did that. I lived in a couple, what could be should have been condemned flophouse
You
situations in
gotta,
college. Yeah.
especially if you're pursuing an artistic career at all, because you gotta be a starving artist at least for a little teeny tiny bit.
Yeah. You gotta at least spend a week on a couch. At minimum.
At minimum 1 week. I had the worst. The condemned house wasn't even the worst living situation I had. I wound up getting out okay. That house was bad. Like, there was black mold that we could see.
Oh, jeez.
One of my roommates at the time, they didn't have a mattress, so they found a mattress on the street and brought it in, and it got fleas all over the front of the house. We had to get it bug bombed.
Oh, my God.
I was literally sleeping on a cot, like a camp cot that I had.
I can't get past some. I'm sorry. The mattress from the outside, I can't get past that. That's the most degenerate thing ever.
All of our minds were blown when that happened. We were like, how did you think this was a good idea to bring in a mattress you found on the street? Just because there was no sign on it that said there's no bed bugs on this mattress?
Yeah.
You think it's okay to bring in a street?
Oh, my God.
Street mattress? But yeah, the worst place I lived, I had to live. I went through that place that I moved out of. After I moved in with the girl I was dating, we broke up pretty quick after that, and I had to get out of that situation pretty quickly. I lived with Tyler in his basement in Silver Lake, and that basement, when it rained, it would flood, and I lost some of my I didn't realize it was going to flood. But I had a bunch of stuff that was like books and some artwork that I just had like up against the wall by where it would flood. And so I had to throw out some of my like favorite possessions.
Oh, no.
Because it rained and it flooded and destroyed the stuff. That's what it is. That was, from a personal standpoint, the worst place I've ever lived. Just because I'm like, I don't want to lose actual belongings.
Yeah, of course.
It's not a fun feeling.
Wait, back to the tunnels, because I'm so curious about this. I
Sure.
thought that I knew kind of all the little nooks and crannies of the store because I used to record a podcast in the basement, and I thought the basement was like the coolest thing on earth. There were all these
great. I
little
love the basement.
Yeah, there's like some closet with all this historical stuff in it and all these relics, and it's just so fun. Where are the alleged tunnels? Like, where's the door?
They were in the basement. They've been sealed off.
Okay.
So they've been sealed off by cement.
Okay, so I wouldn't have seen it back in like 2017.
Yeah, they sealed them off before I started working there.
Okay.
But I remember you could still see like, if you knew somebody who worked there prior to them being sealed off, you'd be like, yeah, that's where the door was.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
I love that. Anything LA history really piques my interest because to me it feels like such a new city, and so hearing about any building that's 100 years old or going downtown, and I've been in a couple buildings that have those elevators with like the great door that you pull.
Yeah.
There's just something that feels so cool. I guess it's the same kind of like romanticizing in Europe that happens when you're there and you're like, wow, these buildings are so old, because it just doesn't feel that way in the majority of the city.
Yeah, I think because this is the thing about Europe versus America too that I think about a lot is like old there is so different than old here, because old there could literally mean thousands of years,
right?
Hundreds or thousands of years old. Here it's like, okay, maybe old is like this building's been around for 50 years. This business has been around for like 20 years. That's old.
It is old here.
But that's not the situation. Like, you go to Europe, you can go to a place in Italy where it's like, we've been making this pasta the same way since the fucking 1500s.
It makes you wonder what we're doing wrong. Like, back to building. Have you ever seen the inspector videos that are big on like YouTube and TikTok?
I had that in my algorithm for a while where it was like a home inspector guy showing off the bad flips that he was seeing.
I can't get enough of those videos.
They're great. Those and like drain cleaning videos. Those are my favorite. That and drain cleaning and lawn mowing. All of those, I will watch people clean shit up any day of the week. That was my algorithm for such a long time. But those videos, because they really highlight like, I think the thing with America is everything is facade.
Yes.
And so because as long as it looks nice, people aren't going to be worried about what's underneath, right? So they're going to just slap a horrible like coat of paint or shoddy tile work or whatever on their product, and then nobody's going to be able to see how bad it actually is underneath, because America's a very, we care about appearances, I think, so much more than the actual like heft and weight and something being worthwhile to use.
Yeah, and it's so sad because people spend, a house is somebody's biggest purchase in most cases. And it's funny that you were saying you were 23, you weren't reading Lisa's, because I work as a notary during the day. Yeah.
Okay.
And so I sign mortgages for people all day long. And let me tell you, nobody fucking reads their mortgage. I'm
sure you probably get a lot of people who should be reading the mortgages, and they're not.
Not at all. They're normally anywhere from 120 to 150 pages.
It's so long.
And while a lot of that, it's so long, so much of it is just like boilerplate nonsense that's really not going to apply to people. But there's also a lot of really important details in there that nobody is looking over. And it's like, if let's say I've done 1,000 signings in my career, I've had maybe 5 people read.
Man, what is the stuff that like people should look for?
Well,
like if I'm ever in I doubt it, because I'm a millennial. I doubt I'll ever own property. But what's like the big if I was to sign a mortgage, what do I need? What do I need to know?
You need to look at penalties for paying, prepaying, not paying, all those things. People don't look at that.
Okay.
People don't really look at what's happening with even the interest rates. Like they sign up for different varying APRs and then they just don't look into it or think about it.
Okay.
What a lot of people I think don't realize when you're buying a house is that even though your payment might be the same every month, the first several years that the whole like 100% of the payment just goes towards interest and you're not actually ever paying down your principal. And I think a lot of people don't look at that.
Oh yeah, you got to be able to pay down your principal. I don't want to be paying down interest. That's the way I got my car loan figured out. I don't want to be paying down stuff on just the interest on my loan.
Doesn't it make you sad they didn't teach us these things?
Yeah. I wish they taught us any of this stuff. I wish there was like there should be more financial literacy classes.
There is. My conspiracy theory self says that they do that on purpose because they make more money off our fuck ups.
Yes. Oh, for sure. That's all the stuff that banks are majority getting money for on the consumer side. A lot of, fees, late fees, low balance fee, which is so stupid.
Yeah.
My wife just got hit with a low balance fee. I was like, why do you have to have a balance to maintain your account at all? Mm-hmm. That just seems not right. And you're going to charge them more for not having enough, so it's just going to stay perpetually low.
It's such a scam.
It's so scammy.
It's so expensive to be poor in this country.
Yeah. Because you got to replace your stuff more often, too, if you're, like, not able to buy, like, higher quality goods once. Then you're going to go through the poorer quality goods more often. The food you're eating is going to put you in a worse position health-wise.
Yep.
And then you're going to have to deal with the dividends of that later on. Yeah, it's all bad.
It is. And I'm like, are they? And I hate to use the word they because I feel like anytime a conspiracy theory gets brought up.
It's always they.
Yeah, and I'm guilty of it too where I'm like, they're lobbying against us learning these things in school. And it's like, who's they? But this sticks with me and it makes me so sad. I did learn and I did the research on it and it is a valid thing. Uh-huh. But Nestle, and a couple other baby formula companies actively lobby against maternity leave because they sell more formula when women are forced to go back to work sooner.
I mean, ain't that just some bullshit?
It's so dark. It makes me so sad.
That's crazy. Also, really diabolical. Makes a lot of sense from their perspective. But, man... I can't. I mean, Nestle, it's so crazy that Nestle, the thing that people I think the most for is like they make chocolate. That's the thing I didn't know if I
such a wholesome reputation. So meanwhile, wholesome.
Yeah, they own most of the water.
Yep.
And it's like 60-something% of the world's water Nestle owns. And they're lobbying to make sure that your mom has to go back to work. And cannot afford to have childcare. and yeah, that sucks.
It's just so sad.
Where's the Luigi for Nestle when you need them?
I know.
Parody. You're looking at me right now, FBI. Don't worry. It's parody. I'm joking around.
Don't you think that allegedly is that the safety word? Allegedly, that we need way more Luigis.
I think allegedly, I'm a big fan of whatever Luigi allegedly did.
Same. Allegedly.
And allegedly, if there were more people out there who want to allegedly do stuff to these CEOs for what they're not allegedly doing and what is they're on record doing, I would allegedly be very cool with that.
I know, and my justification in my head is, well, we've tried to ask nicely, like for a long time and very loudly.
Yes.
My theory is that the last time people asked nicely is when there was all this support for Bernie. Yeah. And his campaign got squashed by the powers that be.
Right.
The theys, right?
Yes, that's a whole different group of theys.
It is.
Came in and stamped him down.
Yeah.
This is, I think, we are, it does seem like we are on this time period where it's like there is something in the water. There is a big change, sort of, like things are starting to boil over.
Oh, yeah.
In a way.
It does feel like that.
And I will be intrigued to see what that looks like in the next couple of years or maybe even months. I don't know how fast all this stuff is. I mean, the problem also is there's so many like weird accelerationists who are doing stuff to like, it seems like almost make society collapse faster.
Right.
And break everything so that way it does collapse faster. But I can't speak to what those days are doing. That's a whole other group of days, and I'm not qualified to speak about those days.
It's just so unsettling, and I don't know the right answer because I really want to be optimistic, and I really want to look at both sides of everything as much as I can.
Sure.
But some things feel really, really hard to ignore.
Yeah.
And I just have a really tough time trying to reconcile that, I don't know, 99% of politicians I don't think give a fuck about their constituents. I really don't.
I think that is, I would say, a pretty accurate assessment. I feel like the thing, this is the way that it always seems to have panned out in the past couple of years, where it's like, and I was surprised that it wound up working this way in this past election. The culture war stuff is the smokescreen for whatever the actual issues are that are like going to be anything substantive that could help people out.
Right.
All of that gets shrouded in the smokescreen of whatever the, culture war flavor of the week is. And I think that if we're talking about putting, a target on someone's back from a political standpoint, if you say, oh, well, this person is the candidate that supports, what was the line that they kept saying? Giving transgender operations to
criminals,
to immigrant criminals, whatever that marketing slogan was. If you're out there saying like, oh, well, this is what they are doing, and that is going to be the thing that like, well, this is what the capital T they supports. Monty knows. Monty knows it's bullshit. If that's what you're going to hit people with, because then they're going to be like, oh yeah, that's crazy that's the thing that they're supporting, and then that doesn't mean that they're going to actually do anything that's going to help you as a voter who cares about some of the other maybe like socioeconomic stuff that actually would help you out and does make sure that you have like a decent, plate of food on the table or health care that is like relevant to you and all of that stuff that like you kind of need to live, that America does not have a good time with having things of that nature on a public scale. You can use the culture war stuff to be like, yeah, we're going to get rid of all this other stuff, and then use it as a smokescreen to be like, okay, well, we're still not going to do anything to actually help you out as a normal average American. because we don't give a shit.
Yeah,
Sorry.
It's really hard to wrap my mind around because when I think of it this way, it seems to make so much more sense that it would be better for everybody if, like, take something like minimum wage, right? That's been stuck at $7 on a national level for I don't know how many years. And I like to think of an example of, let's say, like a hair salon in Pittsburgh. If everyone makes more money, if the average regular person who's like, which 60% of people are living paycheck to paycheck in America, that's fucking crazy that they're like one bad decision or one mistake or one emergency away from being out on their asses.
Yeah.
If minimum wage was higher, then every little small business everywhere would do so much better and everyone would collectively do better, because having all the money funneled up to the top, like Mark Zuckerberg having more money isn't helping a hair salon in Pittsburgh at all. Like, he will never go there. He will never spend his money there.
Right.
Versus if the people who are making minimum wage all around that city have more money, they're going to go and spend it more and boost the economy more, and it's going to be better for the majority of people.
Yes.
So I don't know how anyone can, like, argue against that.
Yeah. It's so funny that, like, anybody who thinks that, I think in general, like, the mode that we are trying to be in now in America is like, it's looking more and more like an oligarchy. It's looking more and more like the kind of place where the people who have the most money and therefore the most political influence are going to be the ones who are, like, getting the biggest benefit out of whatever the government does. And if you are in, just average American city, average American working class individuals are not going to be able to reap the benefits of all of the money that these people have because they're not putting it back into the economy.
No.
Not even at their own companies. They're laying people off at all their companies. They're replacing all of their, so many of the programmers with, like, AI and automation and stuff, and that also is really not helping things out. But then they still go push back and be like, well, why should we do something that would help the average person out or help our employees out because it costs me too much money? Well, then don't have so much. Put some of your money back. Don't you want to reinvest in your employees? Don't you care about if you're looking and being like, oh, I'm so glad that, like, our company's run by a bunch of businessmen. You know what a really good businessman does is reinvests back into their business. And so if you're like, well, America's just a big business, then okay, fucking reinvest then. But it's very strange to, like, be sitting and looking and go, yeah, then nobody's going to do that.
Right.
That's why. Are you familiar with anarchism at all as a political philosophy?
Not a ton.
I feel like this is something that, like, after this election, I was like, all right, I'd heard of it. I'd sort of, I'm in my lefty podcast and political sphere anyway. I was like, this seems interesting. I've sort of, like, heard a little bit about what actual anarchism was, because I think there's a lot of people who, like, think anarchy, and it's a totally different vision of, like, what an anarchist actually believes.
That's probably my idea, where I'm like, you mean punk rock people that wear studs on their leather jackets?
Exactly,
like, that's my
right?
idea
Most
of it.
people, I think, look at an anarchist and go like, oh, well, maybe you're listening to music that is probably going to really fuck your ears up, and you are, smoking in someone's house because there's a pretty kick-ass hardcore show going on in there. I think what I actually, after the election in particular, made me go and do a little bit more research into, and there's, I'm no expert by any means. I feel like there's more that I could be learning, and I'm trying to, get a better understanding of. But the way that I understand it is anarchism at its heart is most about, like, you take a group of people kind of wherever your local community is. It's basically like looking at things in sort of the most hyper-local possible way. Mutual aid is a great anarchist idea. I think that we saw in L.A. how important mutual aid was in the immediate aftermath of the wildfires and in sort of the ongoing aftermath of the wildfires to provide resources and support for people that you just can't do on the same scale as, like, a government organization or even, like, a big charity, big NGO is able to do. And that is just like one of the smaller tenets of anarchism that I really appreciate. Is it's about like, how can you do the best to like take care of your own community? And I think that the tendency for people is to sort of self-police in a way. I think that like 12-step programs are a great example of anarchism in action.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I love that connection.
Yeah, I think that there's like, because there's so much in those groups, a lot of people I think misunderstand because they hear like, oh, well, AA is a cult or whatever, right? And they're like, it's about a person. What I really appreciate about a 12-step program is that it is specifically designed to like at the largest levels, either not have like one leader that you're going to all the time, or there's a constant turnover even within like at an individual meeting level. Like you're going to have somebody who's like in charge of it, and there's a committee of people, but it's always going to be a group conscience. You're always going to take a vote. Like if there's any issues that you want to change about the way the meeting works, there's always going to be turnover of leaders. It's all voluntary. You don't have to do it if you don't want to, but it's still like, it is truly the will of like whatever the people who are actually the most active. That's where it shines, and that's where it will actually come into play, which I do think is, it's kind of an anarchist dream to be able to be like, oh, well, we can take care of this ourselves.
Huh, okay.
That is, I think, the way that I have come to understand it, is it's like not necessarily having to rely on the state. It's not necessarily having to rely on, particularly, I think right now, a very untrustworthy state apparatus.
Yeah.
Which does not seem most designed to help people. And that is, hey, if you're going to have to stay sort of flexible and on your feet in a very weird time, then the best place to do that, I think, is in your most immediate circle, whether it's your friends or your family or your community, your neighbors. All that stuff's very important.
Now I want to look into Anarchy.
See?
I didn't know.
Anarchism's fascinating. I think it's a really because there's also like there's some versions of anarchism where there is like political violence is a part of it. I don't think that that's something that I necessarily buy into.
Wink,
wink. Wink. I'm not a Luigi,
No,
but
me either.
I do think that like I think I'll recommend there's this YouTube channel that I started engaging with their videos to get like a better understanding, that did a really thorough explanation of like what anarchism in a modern context is. It's called Anarch.
Right to the point.
Right to the point. ANARK. And I think, that is a good starting point. It's fucking dense. It's a lot. There's, it's multi-hour long YouTube videos and kind of stuff. But I read audiobooks anyway, so like I'll pop on a long YouTube video. I don't really care.
No, I love that so much. And
Yeah.
I heard a quote recently. This is like related to just not paying people well if you're at the top of an organization and you're winning and you're just using that to siphon resources from your employees. Mm-hmm. And I watched these videos where like a man on the street interviews people that are super successful.
Yeah.
And he was doing an interview with a man and talking to him about what it's like to employ people. And the man goes, well, you have to pay your employees well, because if you pay peanuts, you're going to get monkeys.
Ooh, that's good.
Isn't that great?
That's real good.
Yeah.
I like that.
And you hear about, and it's the irony of you wearing a Costco shirt, because people fucking love working at Costco.
Yeah.
And they have so little employee turnover because they pay their people livable wages. They give them really great benefits. Mm-hmm. And in turn, they're going to end up with the most desirable employees and a business that people love and are passionate about. Like, I fucking ride hard for Costco.
I ride so hard for Costco because they deserve all of the praise that they get as a company.
Yes.
They are what an actual, like, good... They treat their employees so well. People who work for Costco, I know people who work for them for life.
Yep.
From, like, a store, working their way up the ladder standpoint. And it's because they do so much to treat their employees as well as they can. Buc-ee's, I think, is another great example of that, too.
I love Buc-ee's.
Buc-ee's is great.
A general manager there, I think, makes 6 figures.
Yeah. And they are... you go into the Buc-ee's. It's the same deal as like a Costco where it's like people who are there are
they're excited.
They're excited. They're cool, and not in the like. Not to shit on Trader Joe's, but not in the like sort of artificial Trader Joe's way,
forced way,
where it's like because our training says we have to have a conversation with you at the cash register, we're going to talk to you, but they're just like happy to be there, which is cool. Because I would rather be at a place where I see the people who are working there not actively like feeling like shit. You know, I'm feeling better as a consumer if I'm around a place where it's like, oh, the people here actually are, you know, happy and like well compensated. Cool, great, I'm on board.
And the consumers show their support, and it helps the companies, because I'm sure you saw Target went back on their DEI initiative, and it caused all this uproar.
Yeah.
And I just saw yesterday that in 1 month they've lost $16 billion in value.
And you know who didn't? Costco.
Yeah, Costco gained value.
Costco gained value. Costco kept the DEI thing because they were like, we recognize that it has helped our company, and it's like a hot dog. They're not getting rid of it.
Yeah.
I think that this is like, I mean, this all boils down to like a way that like a comedy scene could operate too, you know? I think.
Oh, say more.
Comedy shows paying comedians, independent shows or club shows that pay comedians and actually pay them for their, you know, their time and effort, because you are doing labor up there. Listen, I went real big on the horn for this, and I will always cape for comedians getting paid at a comedy show. I run shows. I pay comedians on the show that I am the most in charge of, which is the game show that I run. But I do think that like if you are a producer who is putting yourself in a position where it's like you're putting a bunch of people on the show, and you are not paying the comics on the show, you're not only doing them a disservice, you're also doing yourself a disservice. And I've learned there are not, especially in LA, I think that this is a bigger problem in LA than in other cities. Because other cities, I've never done a show in another city with a very rare couple of exceptions where I was not paid.
Yeah, same.
But in LA, I think I've learned the lesson of like, okay, there are going to be some producers in some places where you will not get paid. And if you're okay with performing at those places, fine. I pick my battles. I pick my battles with like what the worth of actually my time and effort. Am I going to be getting enough out of it to do that spot, even if I'm not getting paid? If I'm going to be losing money to do this gig. But I do think that like there are certainly a lot more shows in LA now that pay, which is great. I think the message has been reverberated throughout the scene a lot more. I hope that there are, of the few places that are still not paying, or the few producers who might not still be paying, they change their tune, because you're going to get higher quality comics that way.
Right.
Because also, if you're paying somebody for their time and they don't deliver, then good news. As a producer, you've just learned, oh, this person is not even worth paying that money to, because they are not worth the money to me. And so you're going to go out and find better comedians who actually are worth the time and effort that it takes for you to book them.
And they'll be willing to actually say yes to the show because they can appreciate that they're appreciated.
Exactly.
It's so true. And I mean, I know why, like, I've said yes to so many different shows just in wanting stage time. And there's like a desperation that I think a lot of producers and sometimes club owners take part in taking advantage of that. I don't care. I'll burn this bridge. I haven't set foot there in 6 years, but somewhere like Flappers. Even Monty got upset.
Monty knows.
But their whole, like, they'd go out of their way to send you a contract that had $0, you know, on the thing. So you would have to sign off on a $0 contract, which it just feels like a slap in the face in and of itself.
Yeah.
And then the whole system is kind of built around taking advantage of people with dreams, where you're purposely scouring for brand new comedians
Right.
who are bad at comedy, and then you're forcing them to bring their friends, to subject their friends to a show that is booked from beginning to end with terrible comedians. You are now ruining comedy shows for some people who that might be their first show that they're attending to support
Right.
their friend. Why would they ever want to go to another comedy show if they think that's what it is, if it's like fucking amateur hour every time?
That is tough.
And they paid how much for a ticket and had to buy 2 items.
Right.
And yet here I am driving to Burbank, $0. Like,
Yeah.
thanks, but no thanks.
I mean, at least there are other bringer producers out there who are going to say, well, if you bring X amount of people, you will get paid a little bit off of each ticket.
Sure.
Which is, I mean, I still don't like the bringer model. I recognize it's going to be around. I
think it serves its purpose when you're a brand new comedian and those are like your very first shows.
Sure.
It's almost a rite of passage.
Yeah. But I would rather, if you're going to be on a bringer show, try and find a producer who's going to say, okay, I'll give you a cut of your ticket sales.
Yeah, incentivize them.
Great. Because then you're also going to get people who are going to try and do a better job.
It's true.
And then you don't have... I used to work... I mean, when I worked at the store, there was a couple bringer producers who still ran shows there, and I saw so much bad comedy.
Yeah, I used to do those shows.
Between working there and working at Flappers, I saw so many bad comics who were on like bringer shows. And at the store, I remember there was one time I saw a guy who straight up did a lot of Louis C.K. material from when he had just been on SNL, and he did like a lot of Louis C.K.'s monologue. And I remember hearing his set. It was this bit. It's a bit about where he's talking about like, he says something. It's something like child molester shorts, and I was thinking, I was like, that sounds so familiar. That's been said before, right? And I looked and I was like, oh, it's a Louis C.K. from his monologue on SNL a couple weeks ago. And I remember I gave this person the benefit of the doubt that they were like, they actually gave a shit about being a comedian, because I tried to do that for all the terrible comics I would see, and I remember I went up to him and I was like, hey, that's Louis C.K. does that bit, right? And he looked me dead in the eyes and he said, oh, he got that bit from me.
No.
And I was like, oh. I said, okay.
The confidence.
And I was like, oh, you're just delusional in my brain. And I was like, you're not even going to come back here. I don't even worry about you. You're going to just do this is your one feather in your cap. You got all the people in the office who think you're funny to buy tickets to come see you do someone else's stand-up act. You're fine. I'll let you live, pal.
Did you ask further? Did you be like, when did Louis see you?
I might have.
Yeah.
I don't remember. I probably was just like, this guy's crazy, I'm going to let it lie. Because this was not a young man.
Oh, okay.
This was like...
even worse.
This was a man who was for sure... He was like in his late 30s, early 40s.
Oh, boy.
Charitably.
That's so crazy. I used to do one of the bringer shows in the Belly Room.
Who's?
Martin.
Martin?
Yeah.
Good old
Martin.
Martin.
Oh, my goodness. So at the time, I mean, I was 1 year in. It was my first booking at the Comedy Store, so I was excited as shit just to get my foot in the door in any capacity without really an understanding of like what that meant.
Right.
But
also that it's not, your foot's not actually in the door.
Right, not at all. Like, not even. It's like I'm physically here. That's about the extent of it.
Exactly. Yeah.
But I remember he would send the most chaotic emails. Martin would, to get us to bring people.
Oh, really?
And this stands out to me so much because in one of the emails he was like, just so you know, this show, this is the Mount Everest of comedy. And it's like, sir, there's 2 better shows happening in this
Everest
building.
Of comedy.
Yeah. And it's like, there's literally 2 better shows going on at the same time under the same roof.
Oh my God. You know why it's really the Mount Everest of comedy is because a lot of people die on that show.
There you go.
Yeah. A lot of people die while trying to get to the mountaintop.
Oh, it was so, and it's like, whatever it did to my 1 year into comedy brain, I'm actually like grateful for it in retrospect because I saw it for what it was.
Sure.
From doing that kind of thing where I was like, oh my God, I can't do these anymore.
Yeah. I never did a bringer show. I mean, working at Flappers, I didn't do.
Did you used to
as
work
an
there?
employee? Yeah, you didn't
Oh,
know that?
no,
Yeah, I was
and here I am
was,
talking
before
shit
I
about
worked
it.
at the. No, you can talk shit about it. I quit. I quit working there. I quit working there to work at the Comedy Store. But I worked at Flappers, and so I didn't have to do the bringer system that they have, because I was just like, I lucked out into like, I'm worked in at the mics, I'm getting employee spots here and there. But like, I never did a bringer show in LA. I did one that I can remember very early on in comedy. I did a bringer show in New York at Gotham, which was, I had a good experience out of it. That was like, it was nice to have that experience as a, I recognize like the value of it. I look back at that guy now and I'm like, oh yeah, this is not. Oh no, I did two. I did one at Laughing Skull also in Atlanta. But that was like, oh sure, if the only way I can get up is to like bring a bunch of friends, I guess that's what I'll do then. It's the new talent showcase. Cool. Not recognizing that it's like your foot's not actually in the door. You don't know what you don't know. And I never did a bringer show in LA because I saw friends of mine do them. And I was like, this seems like a total nightmare. Because like a bringer show in a city, in a different market than LA, I think is like, okay, some clubs are going to have to do that. I feel like there's a lot of clubs where you're just going to have a bringer show as like part of your business.
It's a stepping stone for young comics.
It's a stepping stone for young comics. And eventually, hey, maybe your club doesn't have to have a bringer show as part of its calendar, but, might. But I remember just like, I think there's a level of general delusional crazy person in LA that other cities don't necessarily have the same way.
It's so true.
And seeing the way that those people ran shows, my God. I remember I had a friend do a Crazy Cindy show.
I don't know Crazy Cindy.
You remember Crazy Cindy?
Oh, actually, maybe if I'm thinking of the right person, there was a woman that used to hit me up for bringer shows, and she hit me up so much that I blocked her because I was like, enough, I don't want to do your shows.
This could be Crazy Cindy.
It probably is.
I remember, was just like, the show was so bad and so disorganized. And also the best part of a bringer show is you watch the bringer producer actually go up and do a set. And sometimes they are actually quite a good comedian. And they've just like, this is their game now. They probably have a family or like, something they got to take care of, and this is what they do. But sometimes they're so fucking bad. And Crazy Cindy was that bad. Crazy Cindy was just horribly racist. Talking, literally like had a joke about every race, talked so much about black penises in her set. Tried to hit on any black man who was in the audience.
Perfect.
Stopped. I think maybe might have said the N-word. Probably just stopped shy of it. Allegedly, I don't know. Definitely probably should be on an FBI watch list. That lady. But I remember seeing like, everybody's got to do that shit. First time I ever saw Hannah Einbinder was on a Crazy Cindy show. And I remember I went up to her after because she was like actually good. And I went up to her afterwards and was like, hey, are you like doing open mics and stuff too? And she's like, oh yeah, I do stuff because the first time I ever seen her, she was like, I'm at West Side. And I was like, okay, good. You got to stop doing these shows because you're actually good. You should put in time and effort. So I just wanted to make sure that you're not doing these shows.
That's so good. Oh man, those are, yeah. Monty, it's okay. I know there's people in the hall. It's okay. Sit down.
Crazy Cindy heard.
Crazy Cindy.
Crazy Cindy's here, Monty. Go get her.
Yeah. All right. I'm gonna switch gears.
Okay.
As soon as he stops barking. Because I know that you write a Substack, and writing can be such a tedious process. And I want to know, what do you do to like motivate yourself when you're not in the mood to write?
I just do it. I think my writing process is actually sort of in flux. My general writing practices. I have been for years. I've been a proponent of morning pages. I do morning pages pretty much every morning, if not actually in the morning, that at some point in the day. If you don't know what morning pages are,
The Artist's Way.
The Artist's Way, the greatest. I love The Artist's Way. But you just write 3 pages longhand. I type mine because if I write out physically, I found I have the tendency to just write really gigantic, and I'm just filling up the pages and not actually writing, just to cheat. Yeah. But I do morning pages, and I also try to what I found that works for me is taking for I've learned over the course of like doing comedy that I am somebody who overwrites. I approached stand up from like a writing standpoint first. I never considered myself the greatest performer. I had to learn a lot more about performing, but writing was something I was kind of naturally good at from being young. But I overwrite like crazy. And so I have so much of my writing process is like vomiting a bunch of stuff onto a page and then going back and refining all of it into something that's workable. So editing is the thing that I actually really love, and writing is the thing that I'm just like, all right, I have to get this stuff out. I don't know if there's going to be anything useful in this, but like hopefully there is. And the way I'm doing things now is just like, even if I don't necessarily want to, if I'm not in the mood to write, I still have to do it. And there are tricks that I can do that will help me get to that place. So sometimes it's like, okay, I don't necessarily know if I have a topic I want to write about today, but I have some things that happened. So let me like recap some stuff that has been going on. Like the Substack that I do, there's sort of a conceit to it. It's like objectively there's a part always in there that is stuff that I like that I saw from like friends of mine or like movies or books or whatever. I'm recommending things. So, okay, I can go back and look at like, oh, did I like an Instagram post or did I put something on my story or like did I post something on like a Letterboxd review? Okay, I can go back and put that in. Oh, what was I doing around then? Oh, yeah, this thing happened. And then maybe it's like signposting like, okay, I write about the thing that happened and like maybe I talk about in the writing how I felt about it. And then I go back in and I take all of this like disparate stuff and try and give it some shape. Because that's the part that is way more fun. The actual assembly and the editing, I think, is the part that really does feel less like work more often. Because writing can feel like work in a really bad way sometimes. You know?
Yeah, it definitely does.
I'm in a writing class right now. I wanted to do just a workshop to like, it's a criticism workshop. So I wanted to take like a little refresher on just like changing my writing practice a little bit. And the teacher, another great comic, Christina Catherine Martinez, she said something in there about, she's sending us a bunch of exercises and things to write. And one of the things she brought up is that from an art perspective, writers are if you're a writer, whatever that means in your art expression, you are the only artist who like has to generate the raw material that you work from. As opposed to like a sculptor, they have clay, they have objects that they can sculpt with. Painters, they can like look at a canvas, look at a bunch of colors, work with that. You have the materials there already. Writers, you got to put a bunch of garbage out that you have to like sift through and turn into something that is cool and interesting and compelling and beautiful, maybe. So I think approaching it like that and taking the pressure off yourself to always be like, I have to have gold, instead of just being like, all I need to throw is I just got to bring a bunch of dirt and I'll find the gold later. I'll sift through it and pan it and the stuff will show up that I need. But taking the pressure off of myself has made it a lot easier to sit down at the keyboard or at the paper and actually get the writing done.
So just turning the perfectionism down as much as you can.
Exactly.
Do you reward yourself after you're done? Do you have some kind of mechanism to where you're like, okay, I have to do the hard thing, but now I'm going to give myself the little piece of cheese at the end or something?
I'll tell you what, the publishing is the reward for me, for the Substack at least.
Okay.
Posting it, that's the biggest, because the weight of waiting for the thing to be done and published, that is so crushing and annoying. Just to have the thing being like, oh, I got to get this done. Once it's out there, then I'm like, oh, what a relief.
Yeah.
Oh, I can breathe again. And I don't feel like I need too much else of a reward besides that. And it's nice that, like, in stand-up you get a lot of reward out of being on stage. And especially if you're, like, trying out new stuff or, like, revision material that you're doing, you get that immediate reaction. You get the feedback. And I feel like for something like what I'm doing with the newsletter, with the Substack, it's not the reward of the feedback necessarily. Like, certainly I get feedback. It's nice when people reply or write back to me or respond and comment and say, stuff about what they enjoyed about it. That's cool. That's nice. But the reward is just the doing and finding a way to make that the actual like the joy in the process at the end of it, at least. That is something also I think that takes the pressure off, to be like, oh, I don't need to do this for really at the end of the day anyone other than me and my own joy out of like this thing getting done. And if other people like it too, that's great.
No, I'm always so curious because I think writing is just one of those things. There's a reason that writer's block is just like a thing that's spoken about as like a literal wall that people run into, or I guess metaphorical wall. Not a literal wall, but a metaphorical wall. And so I'm curious because I think like certain disciplines come a little easier to me and certain ones don't. And I just always am curious what tools people are pulling to get things done because I was talking to Julia Austin the other day.
Okay.
And I forget where she said she heard this, but I really, really liked it. It was like, when you die and if there's an afterlife, wherever you get to, turn the tank in empty.
Yeah.
That was the saying. And I was like, oh, I like that so much. And I like to use that as a kind of mental setting to be like, oh, I got to keep pushing through. Because I think it's so tough with any kind of entrepreneurial pursuit, comedy, especially anything artistic, where you don't really know if you're done. There's not an exact measurement of when have I worked through this enough? When have I rewritten this enough? When has this joke been polished enough? Or just like a sculpture, like when are you actually fucking done?
Right.
And so trying to find ways to like push through whatever that stuckness is, whatever that perfectionism is that keeps people from starting something in the first place.
Yeah.
So I have a lot of curiosity around it. And then I'm also curious, like, what do you do? Do you have ways that you like take care of your mental health to make sure that you have motivation or just to like keep a realistic grasp on things as you're working?
I do a lot of things in sort of different ways. First of all, I mentioned 12-step stuff.
Yes.
I'm a sober person. I go to 12-step meetings. I'm in a couple of different programs. I've been sober a long time. I've worked the steps in that program a couple times. I'm working them in a different program right now. But like having some sort of a regular like spirituality, programmy practice is very important to me. And that means, I'm like making phone calls to other people in the programs. I'm meditating regularly. I have a morning routine. Like I get up, I meditate, I do my morning pages, and I don't feel necessarily quite right until I'm there, until all of that is done. Then I'm like, okay, cool, we're good. I pray. And then the other side, I try and take care of my body. I exercise. I try and exercise pretty regularly. I try to eat. It's tough as a comic to eat well.
It can be.
I'm trying to do a little bit better about it. I'm trying to have better snacks on hand.
Snacks are your downfall?
Here's the problem. The real downfall is fast food. I'll go out.
What's your poison, Jay?
Oh my God. I live right by a Jack in the Box.
Oh shit.
In the Munchie Meal. Oh my God. It's so bad. And it's more expensive than the dollar menu because I used to live by a McDonald's. I'll pop over. I'll go get a McChicken and a McDouble. It'll cost me $5. I'm getting a Munchie Meal now because it's the only decent thing on the Jack in the Box menu that I can get at a cost. It still costs me like $14.
Ouch.
I know. And sometimes it's the only thing that's open. I would much rather, if I'm going to eat late night food, there's a taco truck across the street from the Jack in the Box. I'd rather go to the taco truck. I can get way better food for the same price. But they're not always open as late as I'm out. And sometimes I'm too hungry. And so I have to go to the Jack in the Box. My hand is forced.
Is your dinner time like that late, or is it just that you need something satiating before bed?
It depends.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's the stress eat. Sometimes it's my dinner time is that late. It's all over the place. But like I said, I'm trying to have better snacks so that way I don't necessarily need to be like feeling like I need to eat Jack in the Box at like 1 a.m.
Right.
Because that, I'm still pretty young. I'm in my 30s, but there's only so much late night Jack in the Box that anyone's body can withstand.
It's true.
And but yeah, so I try and, I'm trying to eat a little bit better, trying to cook more. I love cooking. I think cooking is a very nice, like, good meditative activity. It's nice. It's creative. I made chilaquiles yesterday. I've never made that before. I was like, I got salsa, I got chips, I got eggs. I'll try this out right now, and it was great. I've never done a soft scramble. I've never done a perfect soft scramble.
Flex on the eggs.
And I didn't. It wasn't perfect, but I felt really good about it. Yeah. I love a soft scramble. There was something else that I was going to say that. Oh yeah, I'm a big advocate of like video games as self-care.
Really?
Also, yeah.
Just because it's the thing that calms your nervous system, or?
I think there's something that like a sponsor of mine told me years ago. When I was really like early in sobriety and I was going through it, and I was having just a bad day, and he was like, "What would you do if everything was like totally okay right now? Like, say 5 things that you would do if everything was totally okay." And I started out being like, "Oh, I'd fucking jerk off. I would whatever. I'd go on stage," and I was just like shitty answers. And then the last one was like, "I'd play like a video game." And he was like, "Okay, do something. Do one of those." And I've got a console. I had at the time, I think I just gotten a Nintendo Switch. And so I played a game on the Switch, and I was like, "Oh, this is nice." And I found that like I don't do it a ton. I feel like I'm good at playing in like a short burst, like maybe an hour. I used to be really like an MMORPG.
I don't even
like
know
as a kid, like World of Warcraft.
Oh, okay.
So I was really deep into like that realm as a child. But I've never been like a first-person shooter person. Again, that's one of those things that like I don't have the reflexes or the coordination for.
Interesting.
I can't do it.
But yeah, it does require, some video games need hand-eye coordination.
Exactly. But I can be like, lately I've been playing a lot of Mario Party. I got Super Mario Party Jamboree, and that game is great because like I can just pop that on. It takes like an hour, maybe an hour and a half. And if I'm awake and I'm like, I don't want to read something right now, my brain is going crazy, I do feel like I need to like engage it a little bit, but also not do something that's totally passive, like watching a TV show or a movie. A video game's a good way to combat that because I feel like it stokes the sort of natural like competitiveness. And also, you're getting a little bit of puzzle solving in there. You're getting a little bit of like decision making in there. So you're working your brain, but not in a way where it's like too taxing the way that maybe other pursuits late at night would be, or totally shutting it off the way that like reading or writing or watching TV or movies can sometimes do. I'll tell you something that puts me to sleep. If I'm really weird in the middle of the night, same kind of vein, doing the crossword.
Oh.
I will usually, like, I read before bed sometimes, but my best, like, bedtime get-to-sleep activity, if I really need to fall asleep, is I will take my wife's iPad and I will do the New York Times crossword. And
that feels like an ambitious pre-bedtime thing.
It'll put me right to bed.
Yeah.
Because if I can do like a Monday or a Tuesday or even a Wednesday, because those are still pretty easy, I can knock that out in like 10 minutes, and then by the end I'm like, man, I'm done. I'm set. I'm good. If I'm doing like, if it's later, I can get maybe like a third of the way through a Sunday crossword, and then I'm like, I can't keep my eyes open anymore. This iPad's like falling on my face.
That might be a good life hack.
It's good. Some people do the crossword in the mornings. I've always been like, I need this to like get my brain, flush out all of the like crazy like whatever it is, ADD, anxiety, all that stuff. It's just got to get out.
It's interesting.
somewhere.
Our brains are like reversed because I can't have any kind of like mental stimulation at night. I have to watch TV, and I have to watch like the dumbest fucking reality TV show last because that's the way that I like shut everything down.
What's your show that you're on right now?
Housewives at the moment. So Beverly Hills.
Which Housewives? There's so many.
I know there's so many. So I don't watch all the different Housewives, but I really enjoy Salt Lake, which just ended. They finished their reunions a couple weeks ago.
Okay.
And so it's Beverly Hills right now is my one. And then I've also been watching Traitors.
Oh, I hear the Traitors is great.
Traitors is great. It's really delightful. And you know what it is? Have you played
It's Mafia.
It's
Werewolf.
Mafia,
yeah.
exactly. Omid Singh's Mafia, like same thing.
I love Mafia. I love Werewolf. That was one of my first writing jobs ever. Was we did a televised pilot version of the version they called it was werewolf, but
that's so cool.
Yeah. And it was something I know they've been I'm glad that the traders finally took hold, even if they had to figure out like adapting it from a different country's format, because they've been trying to make a TV version of that show basically, or that game for a very long time.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. There's like a guy, the version that our show is produced by, he'd made like, I think this was his third pilot of the show that he was trying to mount. Because it's a great format. Like, if you get the right cocktail of people mixed together, I mean, that's what I love about Omeeds, is it's like you get a bunch of great comedians together. That was what we were trying to do. It was a pilot we were making for the CW. And so it was like comedians and then CW actors from mostly comedy shows. And that was just a great mix. But I think that what makes the traders probably work is you got a lot of really incredible personalities from the world of reality TV who are also going to be like, the drama, it must be so juicy.
But it's also just the most wholesome, indifferent kind of drama where the drama all lives in the game and it's not actually them fighting. Because I would say that like my most feel good favorite reality TV show is British Baking Show, because it is just like so fucking wholesome.
Yeah.
And the drama is like, oh my God, am I going to finish this bake on time? Is Paul Hollywood going to have something kind of like snippy to say about it? But it's never bad. No one's feelings are really getting hurt. No one is fighting with each other, or like dragging their kids on camera or anything like that. And Traders kind of gives me the same thing where it's like, this is actually really fucking silly and pointless at the end of the day. And it's so wholesome, but still very entertaining.
Right. That's good. You need something like that. You
do. Is there anything that you can share? What's like a fascinating thing about working in TV, like food TV, that people don't know, for people that like Hell's Kitchen and shows like that?
Let's see. What can I say that won't get me?
Yeah. And I can cut anything out too that you don't like.
From the industry. I will say this. I think there's a lot of information out there from, previous contestants of shows that I've worked on about like what the filming process is like, and the audition process is like. I think the one thing that really is the most surprising to people is that they, in terms of like the way that shows are edited, we are giving them the amount of time that we say that we are giving them. Like, we don't fuck around with that. We are not in the mode of, like, trying to sabotage people. You're not allowed to.
Okay.
You have to, because there's standards and practices involved.
Right.
From a legal standpoint, everybody who's competing has to have a fair and equal chance of being able to succeed. And so there's a lot of people who I see sometimes who like get onto a reality show about like, oh, this person, their oven stopped working. Something's going on there. This person, they must have sabotaged. They don't want them to win. And I've seen like contestants complain about that and be like, oh, well, they're trying to sabotage me. My electricity stopped working. No, there's nothing on set's perfect. Stuff happens. And legally, we have to correct the problem and make sure that you have enough time to get things done. We literally had there have been instances where like something with somebody's kitchen setup has gone, I don't want to say like catastrophically wrong, to the point where it was like, well, there's nothing that we can actually do. But they've had issues where something like went incorrect because like a piece of equipment failed. And what the S&P person, their job is literally to like take the amount of time that their piece of equipment that they needed in order to complete this dish that they were making, take note of how long it takes to get the replacement item fixed. We will stop the clock for that person, and then you go back in and give them that amount of time, and you still film all of it so that way you can edit it together in the final cut. But like, we're not here to like actually fuck with your heads on a competition show. We're not the Bachelorverse, We're not story producers in that vein. Like, we, there's these people we're just trying to make sure that you get your thing done. And also there's a lot of testing of challenges that goes into play in any competition show beforehand too. I think that's something that like you got to keep in mind. Cooking shows, we have a culinary staff. We have a culinary producing team. And a lot of what they're doing is making sure that the challenges are at least capable of being done. And these are professional chefs. Like if you're working as a food stylist or a culinary producer on television, you are generally coming from, at a bare minimum, a culinary school background or a restaurant background, if not both.
Right.
And so we have to make sure that like you can do whatever we're asking the contestants to do in the amount of time that you're allotted to do it. Because if you're a professional and you can't do it, there's no way these amateurs are going to be able to do it on MasterChef. So there's a lot of checks and balances that go into play to make sure that anybody who's competing on these shows has the fairest possible chance to win. Now, once you get the human element in there, of course, anything can change. Anything can go out the window. I've seen a lot of crazy shit happen behind the scenes.
I bet.
That because somebody like continually winds up surprising and does well, you can't argue that like they should still be on the show. You can't get rid of them because, all of a sudden, something changed. Because that's just not how the show works. We're still trying to we're putting out a good TV, right? We want to make you look good. You got to protect your talent, and if you're competing on the show, that means you're the talent. So we don't want to make you look bad. That's the way all the shows I've worked on have been. Yeah. I can't speak to anything else.
No, but that's great, and that's such a valuable peek behind the curtain, I would say.
Yeah, I hope so.
And it is.
I think that there's a stigma against reality TV being like manipulative, and I think certainly there are elements of reality TV that are manipulative. But you know what? You never complained about a fictional show seeming like it was manipulated. We're just creating a different kind of fiction for you. We're creating an environment that is totally unrealistic because it looks cool on television and it's fun to watch.
Right.
Of course there's going to be some stuff that feels different or comes across different. And of course you're going to try and find, some people on the internet who are going to look at every possible excuse to be like, "Hey, wait a minute, that seems weird. What's going on here?" Anyway.
No, that's great. As a person that loves reality TV and I've been in one failed. I'm so grateful now in retrospect that it didn't go anywhere, but I shot a pilot for a dating show for E.
Oh, okay.
And now I'm like, thank God that didn't go anywhere.
Yeah.
Because then I would have had to kind of fight against the current to have that not be my reputation had it gone the way of like Love is Blind or anything like that.
Right,
so
yeah.
I know how ridiculous and fake some of these shows are set up, from having to be the one who's on set, who has a producer feeding me questions and, let's retake this scene 3 times because we need B-roll from every single direction, and things that I think that people who enjoy these shows don't really think about and don't consider.
Yeah.
So as someone who really enjoys them in format and still knows what it looks like behind the curtain, it's just cool to be able to learn about it and reconcile everything and still enjoy it.
Yeah. It's nice to see how the sausage is made and also still be like, yeah, this is a good format. Mm-hmm. I've come to appreciate reality TV a lot more because I've worked in it. Now I'm like, I understand so much more about not just the format in general of reality TV, but also like the subgenres and the subgroups of, stuff that's an unscripted competition show, stuff that's an unscripted like lifestyle show, the ways that all of this stuff is made, and the level of care that I think a lot of people still put into making good quality content, not just like throwing out slop. I think that the way that the average person would look at and be like, what is this garbage? No, it's like the writing. Somebody took a lot of raw footage and was like, I have to care and put this thing together to make it, functional and watchable.
Exactly. Well, Jay Light, it's been so nice talking to you.
Thanks for having me.
Of course. Tell people where they can find you, what you have coming up.
I have a special out that if you like stand-up comedy, that's me. I do stand-up comedy, and you should watch it. It's called My Wife Hates These Jokes. It's on YouTube if you like specials. If you want to get it as an album, you can do that wherever you buy albums. And if you want to get links to all of my stuff, newsletter, show dates, jlightcomedy.com or at dietj on social media, and you'll find all of my links there.
Amazing. Thank you so much for doing the show.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, and thank you everybody